My name is Mija Machkanga. This video we're going to talk about interview questions and answers that you can get when you want to be a safeguarding focal point person. So let's get to it. The first question is, how do you develop a safeguarding culture in an organization where awareness is low? So this question, they want to know that how do you develop the culture of safeguarding whereby people do not even know what is safeguarding. So you need to make sure that you have time to secure the leadership buy-in by presenting data on risk and compliance needs. So it's always important for you to get the leadership buy-in because they will help you in implementing safeguarding, and they will give you the appropriate resources. So how you get that is by ensuring that you have the risks and the data and the compliance needs that are needed. So you need to make sure that you present the data and you get the leadership buy-in. Then you need to develop clear safeguarding policies and integrate them into your operations. That is very important. For you to have a culture of awareness, you need to have clear policies that are in place, and then you integrate them to every aspect of the operations of that organization. Then the third thing is that you need to train staff and partners with role specific safeguarding education. So safeguarding is not a one size fits all. It is different for a particular position. So you need to make sure that you train your staff in the specific roles that they have. Then you need to provide safeguarding education for that particular role. Then you need to strengthen the reporting channels that you have and encourage a safe disclosure. So if you make sure that they are safe reporting channels, your organization will be aware of safeguarding. Then also you need to monitor and evaluate the implementation using feedback and continuous improvement. Yeah. So the second question is, how do you ensure safeguarding policies are effectively implemented across different locations, especially in high risk areas? So this question is very specific to high risk areas because most organizations need safeguarding focal point persons for areas that are high risk, for example in refugee camps or in emergency setups. So you need to know, how do you ensure that the policies are effectively implemented in this kind of locations? So how do you do that? You make sure that you have a localized safeguarding frameworks that aligns with the global standards but are adaptable to the regional and cultural context. So though they are a global standard, the safeguarding frameworks that you put, they need to be localized and should align to the cultural context of the particular place. So it's always important that you contextualize your safeguarding frameworks and standards. Then also design safeguarding focal points. You have designated safeguarding focal points in each location to monitor compliance and provide guidance. You can't do that in just one centralized location. So you need to make sure that you have focal point persons. In other organizations, they might even have focal point persons that have other responsibilities, but then they also act as safeguarding focal point persons. In other organizations, you might have safeguarding supervisors or safeguarding officers that you may have that will monitor also compliance and provide guidance to staff members. Then you need to make sure that you have regular audits and assessments to track adherence and try to identify any particular gaps when it comes to safeguarding. Then have a technology driven reporting mechanism to maintain oversight. Then collaborate with local authorities to ensure alignment with national safeguarding laws. So it's always important that when you have reporting mechanisms, you need to maintain oversight and try to make sure that whatever whatever is being reported, you need to channel it in your policies and in your framework so that it will help you to strengthen your safeguarding culture. So the other one, usually people in these interviews, you might get scenario questions. So I just decided to put this one scenario, but in my next videos, I'm going to try to make sure that I put as much scenarios as possible, and I will try to put scenarios depending with the particular work that we have. For example, if we're safeguarding in a humanitarian context, I'm going to put scenarios which are based on a humanitarian context. and various other contexts that we have. So for this one, I just put you received two conflicting safeguarding reports about the same incidents. One claims abuse occurs while the other denies. How do you proceed? So you need to make sure that you are neutral. Like I've always said this in my videos, try to make sure you have a neutral, evidence-based approach. So remaining neutral is very important. You need to make sure that you comment on the comment on the feelings that the person is having, not necessarily that you make conclusions or you prejudge the case. So it's always important in safeguarding to always that you make sure that you maintain a neutral stance. Then ensure immediate safety of an at-risk individuals. So you need to make sure that you put the survivor-centered approach the first thing. So you need to make sure that there is a risk assessment, make sure that there is safety for the person who's at risk at the moment. Then you conduct a thorough fact-finding processes, reviewing both reports impartially. So if you feel that you're not impartial, you need to make sure that you find someone who's very impartial in this circumstance, then you make that person investigate. But if you can, please make sure that you do a fact-finding process that is very impartial. Then interview any relevant parties confidentially. Make sure that you have trauma-informed techniques, and then you interview parties that are involved in this in a very confidential manner. Then ensure supporting evidence like their medical reports, their witness statements, every kind of evidence that you need. Make sure that you secure that. Then seek external safeguarding expertise if needed, like for example an independent for an independent review, like that, like what I mentioned, that you need to be impartial. So if you feel that you're not impartial, please try to seek any external safeguarding expertise in this. And if you feel that you don't have the particular knowledge for this particular case, make sure that you have an independent review. Then report findings to the relevant authorities while maintaining confidentiality and due process. This is whereby you report findings to the decision-making authority, then make sure that they make the decision. So that's what you do. Then what would you include in a safeguarding policy? So this is a question that normally doesn't come as is, but it is important for you guys to know what is in a safeguarding policy, so that whenever you are trying to explain your questions, you can just try to run down what is there. So I'm just going to run down on things that are in a safeguarding policy. Like there's a purpose, there's a scope, there's a definition of abuse, harm. Well, before I go any further, like purpose and scope, you also try to explain that this is whereby we're trying to say that who exactly does this policy apply to. Then you will get to see the roles and responsibilities of staff and partners, the procedures for reporting concerns, confidentiality and data protection, risk assessment and mitigation strategies, training and capacity buildings, investigations and case management protocols, and monitoring and evaluation and continuous improvement. So I'm just going to lay this down. So this is like the rundown of the things that you'll find in a safeguarding policy, but it always differs according to your organization. Some organizations may even give rules for visitors. Some organizations may need to put some policies on how to speak out, and some organizations may even put something about child safeguarding in the policies, some even whistleblowers and retaliation, etc. So it's a lot of things, but the basic things that you can find in a safeguarding policy are these ones. So we move on to the next one. How do you conduct a safeguarding risk assessment? So most organizations, they want someone who can do a safeguarding risk assessment, because it's something that every safeguarding person has to do. So the first thing that you just highlight is that you're trying to identify any potential safeguarding risks in programs, in services, and in interactions that you have with any vulnerable groups. Then you try to define what are vulnerable groups. Then you highlight that this is assessing the physical, the digital, and organizational risks. So you can even highlight that when you're conducting a risk assessment, you're trying to identify the contextual risk, the programmatic risk, and the organizational risk that they have, right? So how you do it is try to provide a set of questions that will help you identify this kind of risks that are related to safeguarding. So some of the set of questions will be linked to your own standards. For example, they will be linked to safe. Do they have a safe recruitment? What are the risks that are there in the organization? Do they have anything that is linked to your own standards? So you try to have this risk assessment is just trying to identify any kind of risk that you have. Then you need to make sure that the risk that you have, you highlight the likelihood and the impact of the particular risk. If the likelihood is high and the impact is also high, which means those are the risks that you need to prioritize. Then you try to develop any mitigation measures that you can provide. Then implement these mitigation measures. Then after implementing the mitigation measures, you need to make sure that you have a prevention plan. A prevention plan is whereby you are saying that you don't want this risk to happen again. What should I do? I provide a prevention plan. Then after that, you monitor and review the risk so that you see if the risks is or still there, or maybe there are new risks that would have developed. So how do you implement safeguarding measures in an emergency humanitarian crisis? In an emergency, you need to know how do you implement any safeguarding measures. You make sure that you rapidly assess any vulnerabilities, like who is vulnerable. Then you assess, and are there any risks to the vulnerable people? Then embed safeguarding in humanitarian response plans to prevent any exploitation and abuse. Like there's a lot of exploitation and abuse in the humanitarian context, so you try to embed safeguarding. Then ensure clear and confidential reporting mechanisms are set in place. This is the first thing that you're supposed to do. Like it doesn't matter whether there is something that has happened, make sure that there are confidential reporting mechanisms in place. Then train frontline workers on safeguarding in emergencies. So you need to make sure that your frontline workers are trained on safeguarding in emergencies. Then strengthen community-based protection networks. Like for example, there are women and girls groups that you can try to strengthen, and making sure that the populations, they are empowered to report any concerns that they have. Then you monitor the distribution of anything that you're distributing to prevent any exploitation, and ensuring that no one is coerced in exchange of assistance. So yeah, that is what I wanted to explain to you guys. Please like and subscribe my video, and please do not forget to put a comment or anything that you want me to talk about in my next video. I'm available. Thank you.